In this section of New Approaches to Seizure First Aid, we'll be talking about special circumstances in which care may need to be a bit different or unique. My name's Patty Osborne Schaefer, and I'm joined by Susan Welby from the Epilepsy Foundation of New England. One of the most common questions we have is, what should I do if a person has a seizure in water? Well, if a person does not have any change in their awareness and they have a warning and they say, uh-oh, I'm having a seizure, well, help them get out of the water as soon as possible. Or if it's your child or your loved one, you teach them the minute you feel something coming on, get to the beach, or if you're in a pool, get out of the pool, because you never know if the seizure will end right there or if it could progress to a seizure where they're confused or they lose consciousness. So getting out of the water is key. Now, what about if a person doesn't have a warning, and so that they might be confused right from the start, or they lose consciousness and you see their head going underwater? So if you're right there, you go over to them, you put their arm around them and keep their head above water. Now, in some cases, the seizure might be so short that it's over before you can do anything else. But be prepared. As soon as you're getting their head out of water, call for help. So the nearest person nearby ideally will come over and you help get the person out of water. It might be easy if it's a young child. It might not be easy if it's a larger person. So you need to be thinking about, how can I get them to shallow water so I can keep their head above water as long as possible till someone is here to help me and the person, the seizure ends. So very important information to think about if a seizure occurs in water. Another common question is, what happens if a seizure occurs when you're in a car or if you're on public transportation? So I'm going to address in a car for the person as a passenger, because ideally the person is not going to be driving, if they have a seizure. So if you're a passenger, number one, anyone who has seizures should have a seatbelt on. That's going to keep you restrained from moving or potentially falling and hurting yourself, banging your head against the front of the car, the dashboard, or anything in the back seat. So, wear your seatbelt. I think the smart move for anyone is to always lock the door next to you, because in some kind of seizures, particularly the complex partial, sometimes people fiddle and they move their hands, or they might try to get out of the car during the seizure or in the confused postictal phase. So lock the door so the person can't get out. If you're the driver or you're another person in the car, pull over as soon as you can. Make sure the person stays safe. Leave the seatbelt on if they're just confused, and you can keep them reasonably safe there. If they start going into a generalized seizure, you may need to undo the seatbelt because their body might get stiff and body might straighten out some. So you've pulled over to the side of the road, undo the seatbelt, and then if you need to, you can help turn them to their side a little bit. As soon as the seizure has passed, don't start the car right away. Make sure that they've come to and that they're safe, and you can buckle them back up again. If they're back to their baseline, you can continue on your way, take them home. If they're not at baseline, that's when you're going to have to use your common sense and decide if you need to go for further help. Susan, what would you do for someone at home or at work?
Well, Patty, certain situations arise at home, such as if you have stairs in your house, or the timing is awful if a seizure occurs in a bathroom, which can be a very tough room in the home. One good safety strategy to do ahead of time is to hang a bathroom door with the hinges so that the door opens out. I don't know too many people who have large bathrooms, and if the person has a seizure in the bathroom, they can actually fall against the door and you can't get into them. So I know that's one strategy that we looked at in our home. We also consider practice drills, anticipating. We know what our loved one's seizures look like, and we could anticipate, okay, what are we going to do if a seizure happens here? This is how we're going to prevent it. Families can pad sharp counter corners. I got rid of a coffee table I decided we didn't need it, wasn't that important. There are certain things you can do to make your home safe that, people naturally do for when they have babies come into the house. They proof the house. Well, we seizure-proof the house. We think about things like that. I still consider the bathroom and the stairs the two big ones. Those are the tough areas where if a person has a seizure there, where we want to respond to them and make sure they're not injured, and then follow the general seizure protocol.
Would there be something different if a person has a seizure at work?
Well, at work for the person, there's the embarrassment factor. There's the fact that if they're in an office environment and they're sitting at a desk, if they're falling against perhaps a computer or on the desk, or they fall out of an office chair. Again, I'm thinking keep them safe. I'm assuming here that it was a convulsive seizure that causes them to lose consciousness and fall. But even if it's a complex partial seizure, in an office environment, the first thing I would do is reassure the other people and say, I'm aware of what's happening, I've got this under control. Please, be nearby if I need to call for help. But I'm going to go through the general seizure steps that we outlined before. I'm going to stay with the person until the seizure is over. I'm going to keep track of time. I'm going to keep myself calm, and I'm going to just make sure that their seizure stops in a timely fashion.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about for a child on a playground? Anything different?
That's an interesting one. And without being the hovering person, eyes on the child who's diagnosed with epilepsy, only because, with seizures, timing is everything. And I have had the stories come back to me from parents. The child who went into an absence seizure inside the tunnel in the play structure, didn't hear the call to line up, that sort of thing. So you always want to make sure you're aware where the child is without being hovering or on top of them at all times. Certainly want to keep them safe. Just like they do in gymnastics classes. There's nothing wrong with letting them use the monkey bars, but you're going to be there with them, guiding them, right under them if they're going to fall, if they're going to, go across the monkey bars or something like that, or to use the slide. Again, being aware of where they're at, anticipating it, but yet allowing them to be a child and play.
Okay. Now, one of the other things we hear a lot is, what do you do if a person has a seizure at night? Well, that's a tough one, but it's one that parents everywhere worry about. It's, frightening to think that, gee, you could be sleeping, and then what happens if your child in the next room has one and you don't know about it? Well, things can happen, and, ideally, so the first thing of seizure first aid is whatever you do for them when they're awake, you do for them when they're asleep. But with this caveat, after the seizure, wake them up. You want to make sure that the person's okay. Now, see, can they say who they are? Do they know where they are? I mean, they might be real sleepy and say, Mom, let me go back to sleep. But if you hear them say that and they know where they're at and that they can say that they want to go back to sleep, that's okay. Now you know that they can respond. If you're trying to wake them up and they can't respond, then you've got to stay with them, and you want to make sure and see how long does it take, because if they're not responding and it's going on too long, that's when you might need to call for help. The other thing about seizures at night is you want to make sure the person doesn't sleep with their face down, because that's when all the problems arise, is that the person has a seizure, they roll over during the seizure, they're face down in the bed, and a person can suffocate. So that's the scary kinds of stuff that we don't like to talk about, but we have to talk about. I think you do need to look at your kind of pillows. I wouldn't give my loved one with a seizure a real soft pillow or too many pillows where they could very easily kind of bury their mouth into it. But use the common sense single pillow for it. Some people like to look at monitoring devices. So it used to be that, just using a baby monitor, where you can hear what's going on. So if you heard the other person having the sounds of a seizure, you could go in to help them. Well, we're lucky that, technology is moving as fast as it is, and there are different kind of monitors now. There are pads that can be put on a mattress that might detect repetitive shaking and that can give an alarm to alert someone in another room that they're having a seizure. There are watches that a person can wear that picks up repetitive shaking movements, and that can give off a sound, send a message to a smartphone to alert someone that the person's having a seizure. And there's also video recorders, which we can record the person having a seizure, and if it's detecting the abnormal movement during the event, that can send off an alarm and contact someone. These are fantastic things that have been developed in recent years. Some of them are still under development, and I think that we'll see more and more devices, each year. So if you're a family member or you're a person with epilepsy and you tend to have seizures at night, it's worth talking to your doctor about what is available and then seeing if you can try one of those, if that will help you and those around you feel and stay safe. All of this information about what to do for seizure first aid and even finding about seizure alerts and other kinds of devices can be found on epilepsy.com under our Learn or Get Help section.